How are you, Mark?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Well, actually, I think
You're here for Ron, I guess?
Yeah, I look like.
Just what it was. Hey, Ron, good to see you again. Good to see you.
Nice,
Good to see you.
You guys aren't here for sure today.
I know her too.
It's John in our.
Which day? Do you know how many letters?
I know, well, oh, but yes.
Yeah, that's what we're just talking about.
You ready for me?
Yeah.
I
Ryan,
think
sorry.
we are live on YouTube. Yes.
I think we are.
Yes, we are ready. You're ready.
Okay. Morning, everyone. I've actually done this once before as the vice chair, so I have a little history with that. Let's take a moment of silence to reflect on our appreciation and our gratitude for all the people in our lives, the city, and our role on this committee. Please. Thank you. Just to introduce, we have Lucy Henderson, who's our proxy today for Kendra Stewart. And I think the mayor has walked around and said hello to everyone, so we don't need to go around and introduce everyone, correct? The first item on the agenda is the election of a chairperson and a vice chairperson. I think nominations are open, and I know the mayor is interested in serving as chair. So can we close nominations for chair? So moved, okay. And so you're elected unanimously. But now you have to do the vice.
Thank you very much.
You have to do the vice chair, please, sir. It's all yours.
Oh, is there any nominations for vice chair?
Well, I'll volunteer again, okay?
I'll second Stewart's.
All right, all those in favor, I guess, aye,
Hi.
opposed, nay, great. Thank you.
You're-
Appreciate it.
Got it down already.
Wait, do I start now or?
Yeah, you're in charge, sir.
Okay, well then, next on the agenda is the Climate Action Plan Progress Report from Kate and Ken.
As Katie is going on, if I may, sir, the city of Charleston is still the only municipality in the state that has a climate action plan. And because of what we did here, the county is now working on a climate action plan. And because of what we did here, the state, using federal funds and all that, is working on a climate action plan, all based on what we've done here in the city. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Okay. Have this mic just so everyone online can hear us. Okay. Well, welcome everyone, our first meeting for 2024. Excited to be here and share some important updates with you. We are really excited that we have Mayor Collinswell here with us, who's going to work towards implementing this climate action plan that all of City Council unanimously adopted back in 2021. It is a 5-year plan, so it gives us 5 years to complete this plan. There's about 50 actions in it. And each year we produce a progress report showing that we're actually implementing this plan. So this is the most important part. We actually have a dedicated staff person, yours truly, who is implementing and working on this plan. And you'll see that across all the city departments. When you have a dedicated staff person working on them, they're actually getting implemented and they're not sitting on a shelf. So this plan has 4 different focus areas. And like I said, there's about 50 action items within them. And here's a little bit of a breakdown of how they evolve. Everything in the plan, every action in the plan has multiple benefits. So we're seeing cost savings, with composting that reduces our garbage expenses. We're seeing increased quality of life, beautification, we're seeing resilience benefits. So keep this in mind that this is not at all just about greenhouse gas emissions, although that is a main goal in the climate action plan is to reduce emissions to net zero by 2050. We also have a shorter term goal to reduce by 56% by 2030. But we are getting all these other co-benefits too. So it's really important to keep this in mind when you're working on actions that are decreasing traffic and saving us money. Those are all good things, right? Okay, so I wanted to just run through the 2023 Climate Action Plan Progress Report with you. You all have it in front of you, and if anyone in the audience scans the QR code out there, you can look at it on your phone. Just wanted to touch base on some quick highlights. I will not run through all the data specifically because that's what we do in FlexStat, and I literally just had that meeting this morning. It's all on YouTube. If anyone would like that information, you can go back and look at it. But wanted to highlight that our compost program is now in its second year. So actually no, it's in its third year, and it's a regional program. So we have there's six of us regional jurisdictions that have partnered on it. All the beaches, Mount Pleasant, Charleston County, we all host drop sites. We have 14 sites right now, and we're getting ready to increase that to 20 sites soon. So you can see that some numbers here. We know methane is a very potent greenhouse gas, up to 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So this is a high priority in our climate action plan, literally listed as an action, and we're showing that we're implementing it. So the compost program met all our goals this year, and we set a goal for next year for diverting 200 tons with the 20 food scrap sites. We also increased our pumpkin composting this year. You can see a picture here of a young child who was at our pumpkin smash event, our first annual. It was a great success. People loved it. So we are hoping to host that again. We are looking for any partners who maybe have other events happening in November that would be interested in adding pumpkin smash onto it, because I think the more events we could have, the better. This was such a great way to engage the youth and get folks involved in composting in a fun way instead of, a boring, typical tabling, learn about recycling type of play. We have to make this stuff fun. So Deja, I really need your help with that. So we saw over 700 pumpkins composted, and again, we want to increase that next year. We are using grant funding from an SCD grant. I think we talked about this at our last meeting, to replace all that worn, the recycling bins in our city parks, all those worn lids that you can't tell say recycling anymore, and the signs on the side. We see a lot of contamination in the recycling bins in parks, so this is our way to address that, and we got it completely 100% grant funded. And last year, we also created our sustainable event manual. So we plugged this in places and encourage anyone from city staff to hosting a wedding at home to check this event manual. It'll give you all kinds of ideas you may not have thought of to create a more sustainable event. So those were some highlights in waste. We also had a lot of success with oyster recycling and promoting DNR's oyster shell recycling program. And they saw a huge increase in restaurants recycling their shells because of our efforts this year. So huge applause. Transportation. So we introduced our first 2 electric meets on lease into the fleet. And we have calculated that these vehicles avoid about 1 metric ton each per year. And these are eligible for the tax credits. We're excited to start applying for that soon. We're testing these 2, really, the first 2 in the fleet. Everything's going really well. So if you have any questions, or if you'd like to give a test drive, if you've never driven an EV, ask the planning department. They will certainly, if you're a staff person, ask the planning department, you can ride one of those. Our bike share program, also a success. We saw almost 100,000 trips in the last year. And we are focusing really hard to try to expand this bike share system so it really addresses residents more and city staff more. So right now, for example, there is not a monthly or yearly membership subscription like there was with the last bike share, which is very common to support residents. It's all kind of by the hour. So that makes it very helpful for visitors, but we're seeing the usage is much more focused on visitors and the people that the bike share is also here to serve. So we want to work on that and also hopefully get a discount like MUSC has to allow city staff the opportunity to move around in the bike shares.
So MUSC has a discount, the city doesn't?
We
Good.
work with the bike share, and We get a 70% discount.
They're our sponsor, so are we in a way, but it didn't make it in our contract. And we've asked them for the last year and they say they're working on it. So yes, we'd love your help with that.
Yep.
Carbon sinks, so this is the sector of the climate action plan that focuses on those assets that actually sequester carbon. So our trees, our marshes sequester a whole bunch of carbon. How do we protect them? So the main program in this sector is our Charleston Rainproof program. It's been super successful. You can see a picture here of students at the Cooper School, I believe, installing a rain garden with funding in this program. So this is something that would never have been installed without the mini grant program to support it. And we have lots of great data. Again, I presented on that flood stat that shows that, when we are installing, 50 to 75 of these projects, we're seeing over 1 million gallons of stormwater diverted from our central stormwater system. So that means this is saving us money. There's less money needing to be spent on infrastructure. It's also keeping our traffic moving because the streets aren't getting flooded as much. So lots of benefits here with the Rainproof program and the Adopt a Drain program that go together. We planted some trees this year on public property, not as many as we want to. So I mentioned this morning, there's some great grant opportunities that can allow us to plant more trees. You'll notice in the detailed section of the progress report, I bolded every grant opportunity that I felt could really support that metric. And the trees is one that has, the application should be opening for really soon. And it's one, if we can focus on disadvantaged communities, there's zero match for it. And that funding is a great opportunity to help us not only get more staff to plant and maintain trees, but also we can hire contractors to plant and maintain trees. And like I said, we have a lot of data showing that our underserved communities do have lower tree canopy. So this is a great opportunity to help those underserved communities increase their canopy and do it all with no match. Very few storm drains were adopted this year. This is another program that's just lacking some capacity to manage it and do outreach on it. Honestly, we had our biggest adoption, is Tony Slater, we had our biggest adoption when the Post and Courier put out an article a couple of years ago and it made their front page. It was Guardians of the Greats, and we saw this huge uptick, so please help us. Advertising. And we're really excited to be partnering with the Charleston Parks Conservancy on the region's first food forest that's going to be over in the Ardmore neighborhood. So that's really exciting, and planting is about to start, I think, in April. Building, so this is another area we are lacking in capacity quite a bit that really needs some attention if we're going to keep the climate action plan progress on track for the 5-year success. So we are working on replacing our 8 existing electric vehicle charging stations within 3 city garages. We're gonna make those double stations, dual port, as they say. So they will go from 8 to 16, and then we're gonna add 12 new stations in the Charleston Tech Center. So this project was also talked about this morning if you'd like more details. But we received funding for it in the 2023 budget, and it's one of those projects that have taken all year to plan and get ready for lots of reasons, transformer capacity, working with Dominion, not that you're holding it up, but it's just a long process. And we talked about some of those reasons this morning. So we didn't meet our goal for the end of 2023 to get these installed, but we're hoping they'll be done by the end of 2024.
So why would we replace ones versus just adding new ones?
Great question. So these were installed about 15 years ago. So they're at the end of their life. They keep breaking. They don't make new parts for these because they're so antiquated, and they are not network stations. So that means we can't track any data on them, and we can't charge any money for the electricity use.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Current technology on level 2 charging, you're already up to 11 kW. So those were probably 3 kW at the time. So you get 40 miles in an hour of charging now because of that.
Yep,
So,
we'll get better charging speeds, you got it, but that requires everything to be updated, transformers, conduit, you name it. So it's good to start where you already have some of the electrical infrastructure, but that still all needs to be upgraded. It's a lot harder to start fresh somewhere.
Is there any concern over the life cycle or the depreciation of a new one in terms of a similar lifespan with increase in technology?
we think it's a 10-year asset. and you're.
So these are well past their useful.
The new one would be 10 grand.
So,
There is also a grant that I'll talk about that in a minute. So city construction, capital projects team is aiming to make sure all of our buildings that we are constructing are energy efficient, and they are looking at LEED best practices, but also following the Charleston RSAC building certification program, which we know is a local certification program modeled after LEED that is managed by the Sustainability Institute. There is not a commitment at this time to actually certify our buildings or that this is in stone. So if this is something that is a priority, we could look at a policy statement for how we handle city construction moving forward. Right now, this is sort of a, if we can do it, we do it type thing. Okay, and then finally, when we did our greenhouse gas inventory, we discovered that only 2% of emissions within the city of Charleston limits actually come from city government operations. So what does that mean? That means if we eliminated all of our carbon pollution as a city operation level, we aren't even making a dent in our emissions. So that means we need the whole community to be part of the solution and get engaged. So it's really important to have, you know, an outreach with the community, with members, sharing this information. I can't tell you how many people that, you know, have you heard of our compost program? No, well, how would you hear of it? We don't have any marketing money. Like, so it's really important that we have dedicated staff to get out there, to plan events, to meet with the community. And we did a lot of that this past year, and we are hoping to ramp that up this year with more of a focus on youth, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. So that's the main progress report. And I want to jump right into the priorities, if that's okay, because it starts with these federal grant opportunities. So there are over 300 federal grant opportunities. Okay, right now. You can imagine we can't apply for all 300. Many of these opportunities have zero match requirement. So I have synthesized, you know, these 300 down to about 15. I think there's some ones in green here are ones we're hopefully already planning to go after. Some of them are being managed by the state, which is great. So leveraging our resources. So the state's managing the Solar for All, and we providing support and all that jazz. We are doing the ECBG. The state's doing the climate pollution reduction grant, so we're very involved in that process. So that really helps us, you know, if we can get some of our projects into other grants that folks are applying for and managing, that saves us time and money. So we can apply for other grants. So there's a whole list of sort of the grants that we want to target, and we need to figure out, you know, do we have the staff capacity to not only apply for these, because that's really the easiest part, but to manage the program, to hire staff, which can be embedded in the scope budget, and then compliance, because, and Amy Morton will tell you, compliance is so important, because if you miss one thing in one of these federal grants worth $20 million, now all of a sudden you don't get reimbursed $20 million. So compliance is super important, and that's an area that we lack into. Did you know?
Yeah, what in gray is that sort of just like second priority is?
I think the green I just highlighted as the main ones, and the gray ones are look into these a little more, because I think they could help too. But like I said, we can't go after all these. We just don't have the capacity to do it. So what do we focus? How do we strategize on this? And like I said, most of these have no match at all. The NEVI, the CFI, the Charging and Fueling Competitive Grant, is a grant the BCD COG is actually going to lead for the region, which is great. And we're hoping to get that application in this year with Kyle's help. So lots going on with grants. So that's a huge priority in 2024. And like I said, look at that progress report. You can see that grants can help us in every sector accomplish our goals faster. So other priorities, our compost program. We are making this program full service. So we used a lot of data to improve this program. We noticed where we had holes in service. So we now, with the help of the county, we're gonna add 5 new drop sites starting March 1st, very likely. And we now are gonna have 2 drop sites on John Island. So that's super exciting for John Island folks, many who are already composting. And We are also inviting more partners to participate. So as you all know, right now, our compost program is regional, has many partners, and we leverage each other's resources. So this is how Holly Beach can compost, because they're using the program that we built and all the resources that already existed, and we just expanded it to a region, and now all the partners pay for their own drop sites, and it's a program that's working really well. And it's saving us money. We pay $1.60 per household per month to pick up food scraps curbside. It's half that, it's 80 cents to pick up food scraps at drop sites, because you're concentrating them rather than stopping at every driveway.
How is the question? How is the isn't a new private entity doing the composting now at Beast Ferry landfill? And how are they doing versus when I think the county was doing it before? Are they producing more? Are they producing it for less cost?
So I wouldn't know the numbers, but I would assume that their production is more efficient just because they're experts. So what he's talking about is the county owns the Beast Ferry compost facility, and they entered into a public-private partnership with McGill Compost, who manages many facilities across the country, and they are really skilled and expert staff that are working on it. So we do a lot of partnering with them, and it is going on. I would imagine it would be more efficient than
That's where everything
government staff running it.
collected from the city. That's where everything goes is
You got
Beast Ferry.
it, yes. And we actually, we partner with them and we do tours of the compost facility. We have planned for Earth Month, so folks can go see the process firsthand, and they can take home some free compost too. So lots of partnering with other organizations. We're gonna host all kinds of training workshops this year. You can see that little green compost bin at the top, but we give those away to residents for free to help them get started composting. We pay for those with grant funding that we get from SCDHEC. Again, no match. And we just do a lot of outreach, and we really want to target more youth opportunities and young children opportunities. So if anyone can think of other events, especially school-based events that we could set up a compost table at, we have all kinds of folks ready and eager to get there. Also in our faith-based communities. And this year we did our first pumpkin smash. It was such a success that we are going to do another one, and we're hoping to actually do a couple more and spread them out. So if anyone has an event happening in early November that we could add a smash to, that's the easiest way to do it rather than an independent event. So we added it to our farmers market, and it was great. And this is a picture of we tested a compost bin at the Beast Ferry facility, and it was super successful. They got over 1.4 tons there over a month and a half. So we're going to try to put bins at every drop site this year. So we're excited to see this program grow. It's so successful. Residents love it. I literally have people that call me at the end of every month saying, "Oh my gosh, Katie, what's the data this month? Is the program going to continue?" They're so excited about it. And then when they see the data update on the website, they'll call me too and say, "So glad that this is happening." And they're just so positive about it. So it's one of those programs we have that everybody likes. It's not political, it's nice. All right, electric vehicles. So this year we are focusing on, we really need to focus on our fleet transition plan if we want to keep our cap on track. So we have EVCBG funding that we are going to dedicate toward this, and this project should start this summer. So that is also fully paid for by a grant. This is actually my a past intern of mine, Michael, who now works on Kiowa, and you can see they have an electric F-150. So we don't even have one of those yet. So that this year we're also hoping to buy one of those with our EVCBG funding. And then I talked a little bit about the EV infrastructure, how we're gonna go from 8 to 28. We need to create, an EV parking policy to go with all of that. And I mentioned that the COG is applying for that CFI grant, so we're working with them on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are we with zoning and the possibility of doing EV charging, that conversation that we started last year?
It's coming up.
Okay, sorry.
All right, I need to move faster. So we want to report on goal progress more in flood stat. We need to perform an emissions inventory. Like I said, we want to do a lot more outreach. So we have a whole ambassador cohort that can go out and teach people about our programs that we train. We're looking at going to a River Dogs event that is actually for all the Charleston County School District classrooms to go to. So we're going to get in front of 4,000 to 5,000 students, elementary age students, to talk about composting and recycling in partnership with the county. All paid for by the county. We are working with the Low Country Resilience Collaborative, thank you, and the College of Charleston to start this grow your own food, teaching children how to grow their own food with workshops and also giving them a couple vegetable plants to try at home. So that's a new thing this year that we're really excited about. And then all kinds of, social media toolkits that we want to grow out this year. So we addressed our extra thick plastic bag loophole last year, and now we need to inform businesses, make sure that they know what's going on. So we're working on that. The schools, we've been helping the schools compost with education. So this is pretty neat to see the county schools children learning how to compost at such a young age. They take that, they soak it in, they bring it home, they teach their parents, they teach their neighbors. It's the youth. Okay, and then our Charleston Rainproof program, this is an intense slide. We're gonna grow this year, and the rain barrel sale is coming up this spring. We have all kinds of events happening with Low Country Earth Week. This is the post from last year, but those are all being planned right now. We are restarting our mattress recycling program, and the county wants to collaborate on it, so we are creating a regional program, and they're gonna bring some funding to the table too. We are trying to plan for renewable energy on our city structures. It's challenging. We're trying to plan for energy efficiency to help our longtime residents that really need housing retrofits. This is something we're hoping to address in a larger federal grant. And then we have many actions in the plan that need to be addressed in the zoning code rewrite. The EV ready ordinance is one of them. So those are all being considered by the planning department and consultant team right now. Our street tree inventory is almost done, and that's it for me. I know it's a lot, there's a lot going on, but you can see there's a lot of priorities. We're not gonna be able to get to all these this year. So these are priorities to keep us on track. We really need more capacity if we are gonna try to stay on track with this climate action plan. We've done the low hanging fruit, and now we're like, okay, we need to go after some of these large grants and make sure we have more staff who can address this. So are there any questions, comments,
Good comment. So you want
or
to,
suggestions for anything you
no,
know?
you have a couple. So aggressively pursue the energy efficiency pieces, because they're complementary to programs that already exist. So then it's extra leverage. So you guys do a great job. You probably underreported how effectively you guys are using that and how that gets used in the city. So that's really, really important. You should probably take credit on the e-mobility side, because the Regional Transit Authority has 32 electric buses. Most of those routes go through the city of Charleston, and maybe on the peninsula, but in other places. So you should take credit.
I give credit to the COG. Carta.
Yeah, and then on the grant applications, just the energy related, this, ask us for a letter of support, and we'll be very specific about kind of our engagement and involvement. But
Great.
you guys are making great progress. I'm looking forward to addressing kind of the EV shortfall of charging that I think is going to come upon everybody pretty quick. So for those of us who drive them, we know. So.
Yeah, okay, good comments, Annie.
I just wanted to quickly, on the transportation, when we were talking about the bicycles and the bike share, MUSC also partners with CARTA, and we pay for our employees to ride all the all CARTA buses. So all I have to have is my badge, and I can get on any bus at any time. So I wanted to make sure I made that link, that we're doing both of those, and if you go after one, you should go after the other.
Yeah, we
College
have
of
an
Charleston.
action.
And College of Charleston is the same. If
Yeah.
you have the CFC, you can get CARTA or bike access.
So we actually have an action in our climate action plan, because you brought this up in the session, where we want to also allow city staff the ability to get on any bus when they can. And there is this, hopefully you can help us with this, but there is this, if we're paying for a parking pass, we don't want to also pay for a bus pass and a bike pass. So how do we do, partial of each? How do we figure that out and work with the COG on that and CARTA on that? And we basically left it as we did a little preliminary analysis, and the majority of city staff live north of the city. So we were like, why don't we wait for the Low Country Rapid Transit to come on board and try to work on it at that time? So that we should really start thinking about and talking about options for that. But yeah, it would be great to give people the option to do any of those.
This is a great update. I did want to add though, and I know we've talked about this offline, but ways to educate businesses on what sustainability looks like in the workplace, especially from a cost benefit standpoint. So we can get some information to share with our members.
Yes, let's meet about that. So we are working with the Charleston Climate Coalition, who is creating Low Country Thrives, I believe they're calling it, which is basically a remake of the Green Business Challenge we used to have that is more functional and has more resources for businesses. So we're partnering with them on it. We're really fortunate to have them be the lead on it. But yeah, let's get together because that's our focus on businesses for sure. That would be great.
Thank you. Before Dale gets started, I do have to let the committee know I have a hard stop at is it noon? So anyway, just let you all know that.
We didn't get it fast.
Yeah. I mean, that was I'm not suggesting a loaded comment, but
Thank you. So big applause to Katie for all the work that she's doing, the success we have with, climate adaptation is really important. Mitigation, carbon mitigation will help us. So climate change and the impacts of climate change. So we have to work both sides of that coin. And that's what we're doing. Katie works on the mitigation of carbon side and I work on the adaptation of our land side, as you know. I'm going to give an overview of some of the projects we've been doing. We've discussed these before, they're advancing. I'm going to talk about these items, try to move quickly through them. One of the most exciting things is we are going to, real soon, we're going to have information about what's going on with our groundwater. So I showed this picture at the last committee meeting. This is groundwater flooding by the Jasper. It's been dry for 7 or 8 days. There wasn't a hose left out. This is just a high tide pushing groundwater somehow through the soil near the Jasper, and it's popping up here. So through the water plan and through just knowledge, we know that the groundwater is going to start to flood us more. Where and how and why, and what they may mean for our drainage systems are things we need to learn, we need to understand. And the way you do that is by installing groundwater wells. So through the water plan, comprehensive water plan, and I'll take you a little bit on that in a second. We've installed 14 groundwater monitoring wells around the city last summer, part of the water plan. The sensors, I'll show you them, they're working, they're collecting data every hour, so that's good. We have 12 that were funded by the city, 2 were funded by CCRAV, which is an organization that works with the Low Country Alliance for Model Communities up in Rosemont. So we had our waterfront team install those 2, they're all collecting data. We have funding approved in 2024 to install 4 more. We could get a few more if depending on how the budget works out in the future. We need to do this because the soil quality and the infrastructure nearby really impacts what the groundwater is doing. So we need to understand that. And the sites we're choosing for the typology of the site itself, what its soil conditions are. We have wells in different types of soils because that's going to impact things. Our groundwater team has told us we need to understand groundwater and its location to existing drainage infrastructure and underground, because that could be exacerbating our flood problem or maybe helping our flood problem. We just need to understand that. And also access. We need to be able to access these sites. This is, this list, this spreadsheet here is where the sites are. Okay. Very good. The sites are there. You can see most of these are on the peninsula because of the drainage infrastructure there. That's something we need to understand, groundwater drainage. The other 4 we're going to have this year, we're going to install this year, they will be off peninsula. You can see there's spots in West Ashley, James Island, and Johns Island where we need these. Daniel Island is fairly well understood, but maybe we need something up on Canehoy and some of the new development. We'll work through that this year. What does a well look like? So the left is a well with a cover on it. If you see one of these in some of the parks, you understand what it is. You see an exposed well. It's just a PVC pipe that goes down to a certain point where the groundwater is, and there's a sensor in it, and the sensor is on the left, and it's just collecting data all the time. And we have to physically go out and read the monitor. So we're going to be doing that. We installed 3 early in say March and April of 2023, and then the rest in the summer. We will get real soon. We're going to start collecting the data from the sensors next week. We'll get a graph like this, a time series like this on the left. That is from one of the groundwater water monitors in Cannon Park. You'll see the jagged line is the sensing, the data.
do you cross-reference that with tidal and rainfall, I'm assuming?
So we didn't for this initial run, but if you see on the left, we are going to create in the web viewer, this will be publicly available. We will create a data set with GIS. Robert was here earlier. We're gonna put the groundwater level, which is that jagged line. We're gonna put the mean and the sort of the various tidal levels, the tidal stage at that point in time. We're gonna overlay rainfall data. We have this, we just need to overlay it. Air pressure, which is important, and then other things, was there a drought going on? We'll put that all in there, and this will be publicly accessible. We have a College of Charleston graduate intern that's gonna do this. He's an archaeologist and knows about mucking around in the dirt. And the next meeting in May, he will report this data back to you, and we'll start to do this. And again, this will be publicly available. And we know the folks at the college and the colleges, universities, they want to see this stuff too, because it's really important. So that's really exciting. The comprehensive water plan, as you know, it's been underdeveloped now for 15 months. The draft will be out in probably, will be available to me and to city staff in 2 to 3 weeks. It'll explain, I've seen the outline of it. It will explain these items here: collection, analysis, engagement, and justice, policy recommendations. There will be key project recommendations in this, and then this will be presented in a story map format. It's not a big, ugly sort of PDF that's expensive to produce. It's going to be online, and online it'll be very visually rich and communicative and can inform people. So that's good. I think it's very important. This project started before Mayor Cogswell and his team came on board. I briefed them a bit about what we're trying to accomplish with this. We need to do more of that work, explain what the tasks were, the scope was. And they need to understand sort of what the water plan is reporting, because it could be surprising, or, you know, there is, as I say, there is some pain in this. There are some opportunities, and there's adaptation in between, right? And we have to sort of do that going forward. So the mayor and his team will get a chance to look at this first before it gets public. Soon, Union Pier, as you may remember, the water plan team was tasked last fall to do an analysis of Union Pier, the resilience, the water aspects of Union Pier. This is a slide I presented at the last meeting. This was their scope of work and the set of deliverables. That report is coming to me today or tomorrow. We'll look at it, share it with the mayor, and then present it to the Riley Center and to the water plan team, Sasaki, that's doing that work for the city, and the Riley Center. They'll get it and adjust it. There was a draft presentation, made to the Union Pier Advisory Committee in December. These are slides. I'm going to show you a few of these slides. This is the future water conditions on Union Pier going forward. The darker the blue, the deeper the water. So keep this in mind. This is combined future conditions, assuming 14 inches of sea level rise, because that's in our water plan. And then what anticipated storm surge will be at various times or frequencies, plus tides, plus rainfall. So like a lot of the peninsula, and of course it's wet at times. We need to be able to manage that, understand that. We need to be able to adapt Union Pier. We have a recent event, the December nor'easter. This is what it looked like on Union Pier. Mark, I know you were probably mucking around in that, right? So the water was very deep. This was a combined event, so rainfall plus tide. Storm surge actually coming over the land. So it wasn't coming up to the check valves, it was coming over land, over top of the edge. And then the water settles. If you don't get Union Pier, the land water edge is higher than Washington Street, which is the city side. And so the water flows, it's coming over land, it flows across. And it collects in this area, which is that where those yellow dividers are. That's sort of near Washington Street. That's the lowest part of Union Pier, and that's where it collects. And the water there is probably 3 feet deep. So it's a lot, right? And I want you to pay attention to this, because the water plan team has come up with a draft concept. This is draft. They're refining it over the last month with a set of infrastructure and a set of adaptations, some elevation, and expanding the existing drainage system over time. You don't do this tomorrow, but over time, so that the system becomes more resilient. And if you look at that wavy line, that blue line in there, the water plan team is fairly confident that what is needed over there is a lateral drainage system above ground. So that's a canal. Canals can be ugly or beautiful. We want to make this beautiful, that would collect that water and then allow for resilience in there. So you can have a canal that has additional storage in it for unanticipated rainfall months. And that line is following the railroad spur that is on the pier right now. It doesn't have to be there, but that makes sense because it is space that is not used otherwise right now. And you'll see that dotted line going up, the waterfront team was tasked, like, what do we do about the rest of the east side going forward over the next years too? Because Union Pier is one part of a larger basin, set of larger basins on the east side. And we think that over time, over the next 20 or 30 years, that railroad spur can be an extension, or can be the canal that we're suggesting here can be extended up the east side and down a little bit too. A new pump station is here, and that red line, you see dotted red line at the bottom, that is an elevated edge. That is an elevated edge to protect Union Pier from tidal surges. So that's all part that's coming at us. It's good. I mentioned we have a new study that's kicking off, feasibility study with the Army Corps of Engineers for tidal and inland flooding across the city. I used this slide last year, last meeting to show you this. The mayor has been invited to sign the tidal inland study and cost sharing agreement on February of a couple of weeks from now, and I understand he's going to sign it and send the money to the Army Corps so we can kick off the study. This is a feasibility, Army Corps feasibility process, 3 years, 3 levels of review, $3 million. The city pays 50% of that. So good. One of the best things about this study and all future studies, or studies that are starting mid-23 and on, is the Water Resources Development Act of 2022 expanded the authority and scope of the Army Corps of Engineers to address all types of flooding. They didn't have that authority before. They have it now. Congress realizes that if you're going to spend this money, you should try to get as many benefits as you can. Congress finally agreed to that, and this will govern our tidal inland study, so we can address different types of flooding, which is wonderful. And one of the things we have been working diligently with is whatever we do on the peninsula for peninsula protection, that this tidal inland study should inform the design of that effort. And we are very confident that we'll be able to do that if and as we go forward with those projects. And then,
And just for
yes,
clarity, that study does incorporate not just the peninsula, it is city writ large.
it is the entire city. And so we will likely have, we'll probably proceed down a couple of tracks with the study. One for the peninsula and one for the Hoffmans, and maybe actually one for West Ashley and James Island, because they have very similar problems. And then Daniel Island and Johns Island, they have longer. They don't have any problems now, but they don't have any, but their problems are less severe right now than these other places. So we will have different tracks in this. We'll pursue different chiefs reports, which is what authorizes the projects with funding from Congress to go forward. So this is there's a strategy behind doing this. Final thing I mentioned last year or last meeting is the city of Charleston and the town of Mount Pleasant and the town of city of North Charleston and the county. We worked together last year. My goal was to drive more regional resilience collaboration like Katie's doing with climate. We need to do this. Water doesn't care about political boundaries. We need to sort of think about this as a region. The Woodwell Climate Research Group did some modeling for us for free last year for the county. And these are future conditions looking at where the flood risk is going forward. And they use a different model than FEMA. So we are governed by FEMA in some ways, but they use a different model. And this red here in this map, we weren't surprised in the city because we know what our flood risk is, and through the water plan, we know what our future flood risk is going to be. We were not surprised one bit by this map. But the county and Mount Pleasant and North Charleston were like, oops, what, we don't know this. So what we've done is we've applied to NOAA, or we, the BCD-COG, these constituent jurisdictions, went and lobbied the COG to apply for a regional resilience grant from NOAA. There's a challenge grant out right now. We applied for that in last August. 800 applications went in. 100, a little more than 100 were selected to submit a full application. So that's good. That application is due next week, February 9th. The BCD-COG is leading this, and the goal is to develop a regional water and resilience plan for the Tri-County for the BCD-COG. So we take pride that we drove that discussion, and the BCD-COG is just, they're gonna help and implement this project. It's wonderful. And then the city water plan is the foundation and the inspiration for what the regional water plan will look like.
This is the planning grant as opposed to the infrastructure grant that they also have,
Yes,
which one could lead to the next.
exactly.
So there could be some bigger bucks down the road if the planning aspect of this.
Exactly. So Rick knows this grant. This is a lot of people watching this and we were delighted that we were invited. There are 2 tracks to it. One is for planning and regional, setting up regional collaboration, and the other is for implementation. So building stuff. We don't have a plan for the region, so we need to do this, and we have to create a governing coordination body. So that's what we're applying for, which then leads to future money to build stuff. We are also, I'm pleased to say, we were invited to be a collaborator in a University of Georgia implementation grant application to be a pilot location for nature-based solutions going forward. And that is a $75 million application, and we know the guy there who's doing that. He was the former head of the engineering with nature program at the Army Corps of Engineers, someone I know well. He saw what Charleston was doing, so it would be a great site for that, and they're gonna give us money to do this stuff. We should try to take that. So we're collaborating in that, but this is the BCD COG grant, and we've just been helping them write this grant. So big applause to the COG. And then for 2024, Katie said this, what are we gonna do? So we have, as you know, sometimes the city with federal support, we buy out voluntarily, we buy out homes from people who are in repetitive flood loss areas. Federal government pays either 75 or 90% of those costs, and the city has to kick in the residual. We've done it in the past. We know we're gonna have to do this more in the future. All voluntary, no one is being bought out, it's mandatory. One of the things that occurs is the city staff this is very intense work. And the city staff is not prepared to do this. We've done it on hack, we did it ad hoc, but we need to do better with it. So there's an FMA grant, flood mitigation assistance grant from FEMA that's available. We're applying to that so we can understand how we understand our severe repetitive loss areas, which areas may need to be socialized for possible future buyouts. How do we communicate that? How do we explain this to the residents there? And then to develop a program so we can get at scale buyouts. What does that mean? It means not one at a time, but do something like we did in Shadowmoss, where we bought out 32 contiguous townhomes in 2019. And now we're turning that into a stormwater management park. So it's a recreation facility, but it will store stormwater when it gets wet. And that's very important. So we're now taking advantage of this very sad situation of buyouts and trying to turn it into something good. So that's why we need to get scale. So there's a longer process we've conceived here, and we're going to start with this grant. We want to get this grant, we're hoping we will. I want to continue in 2024 with water plan education, advocacy, moving projects forward that are recommended through the design phase, socializing those. I work on the tidal and inland flooding studies just mentioned. There's a whole lot of scope. There's alternatives we need to look at. We need to analyze those alternatives for performance, all those things. The groundwater analysis. I'm going to work with the mayor and his team on perimeter protection and local sponsor collaborations. We're going to work on this NOAA grant that should be funded. I'm hopeful we're going to get this. We're going to work on that implementation as we can. That may be in the fall still. Work on union peer as needed. And then I just put this here as my closing and whatever else the mayor says. That's what I'm going to be doing.
No problem. Yeah, one.
I was fortunate to be invited a couple of weeks ago to a Duke University roundtable in Savannah, and it was focused on insurance. And now we're talking a lot about the environmental aspects of flooding and issues, but we're seeing in our insurance world that bottlenecks are being created because the insurance companies are pulling out. I was told by my State Farm agent that at one point in South Carolina, there were 70 companies writing insurance for property. There's only 2 that write insurance now for the coast. State Farm just pulled out of the coastal zone. They're not going to write any new policies. So insurance is becoming more and more an integral component of these conversations. And they may, and there were some international insurers at the table, they may have something to say about where things go, because they may say that we're not going to put money there or where you want to do this. I was just wondering, just for thinking purposes now, is there an opportunity at some point to have to combine the disciplines, so to speak, and have a conversation about this as how one may influence the other and vice versa? Because it's gonna be more of a challenge for us in the future, like water is gonna be more of a challenge for us in the future.
Well, the number of disasters, if you look at the number of billion-dollar disasters, climate disaster or disaster from natural causes that have occurred in the last decade, they're accelerating, just like sea level rise, that these disasters are accelerating. They're becoming more costly. So some of the disasters are paid for recovery dollars from the federal government. A lot of it's insured. And if the premiums that the insurance companies are charging doesn't meet their payouts, and they're behind that curve on those, then the market will discipline them, the stock market and shareholders.
Yeah.
Well, that's going on. So we know a number of nonprofit institutions in the city of Charleston, some very important ones who can no longer get property insurance. Flood insurance, just property insurance, right? Okay, so they have to self-insure. That's expensive, right? What does that mean? What does that risk profile mean for them, right? And this is a big concept. Homeowner insurance, I live in the X zone, my property insurance, my homeowners went up by a third last year. I'm in the X zone, I'm high relative. This is occurring around, so.
It has a ripple effect.
That's a ripple
And
effect.
the market's gonna dictate and define where you can and can't get insurance. And even if you're out of the flood zone, because of the people that still are in the flood zone, the actual deals are gonna push your insurance up. So,
That's,
um,
so I would love to have a conversation, again, remember, insurance is a state regulated entity, so. I know some folks in the reinsurance industry they're actually able to mitigate these risks better than the individual insurance companies. So I wouldn't mind planning a workshop on that issue, but again, what the city can do about that is it's not easy, right?
No, it's not, there's gonna be information coming out of that workshop that I think might be informative to this
Maybe,
in general.
did you want to say anything about what I just presented, or you?
no, I think you did a phenomenal job. Looking forward to working with you on your initiatives, and it's a tall task on addressing sea level rise. It's obviously a critical issue for our city for a variety of reasons, quality of life, economic, as we were just pointing out. So we're committed to it, and you know, we're sounds like we're on the same page on a lot of these things, and I appreciate Dale getting me up to speed. You know, we were definitely drinking from the fire hose, but excited to be part of this group and that I'm chair. And apologies, folks, that I'm still learning my schedule too. So apologies, I got to cut out, but looking forward to being part of this moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So that was my presentation. Any other comments or questions or advice? Good, all right, Katie, who's next?
So April is next. We are at 12. You came all this way. I feel like I should have been first. Sorry. Would you like to present us?
Well,
Can folks
I
stay
can-
for?
why don't I just skip the slides and just do a really quick 5-minute introduction to what we're doing? Is that
Sure, it's up to you. If you want to scroll through, it's ready for you.
just to let you know who I am and the work that we're doing and how we can assist you guys in the work that you're doing. My name's April McGill. I am an architect in Charleston. I have been practicing architecture for 20 years in Charleston. 12 years ago, I started Root Down Designs, my own practice, with a heavy focus on sustainable buildings. We were doing climate smart, carbon negative architecture before those terms even existed. And we specialize in healthy buildings, healthy indoor air quality, and resiliency. So everything that you guys have been talking about, we sort of check all of those boxes as it pertains to buildings. And the demand for this work has grown so tremendously, especially over the past few years, that this past year, we decided to form a 501c3 nonprofit, which is the Root Down Building Collective. Here we go. Our mission statement is to advance regional, climate smart, and equitable housing solutions, which is a mouthful. But we want to be able to plug in where you guys need us in the grants, and to help form partnerships with our other local organizations like Charleston Climate Coalition, Sustainability Institute, and others. Can I get back one? Yeah, so we do a lot with ADUs. We're very interested in increasing density in smart ways. I work with Ms. Shaw Johnson quite a bit. We have house plans where we help streamline the process for people, and very interested in alternative methods such as community land trusts. I serve on the Community First Land Trust Board as well. And I'm gonna go really quickly here, but we are here to help reduce the emissions. These are statistics taken from the city's climate action plan. The way that we are doing that is a 3-tier process through R&D and pilot projects, education, and advocacy work. We have just received our building permit from the county for our first pilot project, where we will be building a panelized prefab hempcrete structure. So I won't get into all of the details around hempcrete, but ultimately the cool thing about it is that it is not only carbon negative, but it also works hand in hand with the industrial agricultural side of things, so we can bridge relationships between our farmers and our builders. But the best thing about it is, sure, yeah, that's ground. Its resiliency, anti-mold, antifungal. We talk about water, how do we live with water as we move forward? We need building materials that can take on water and hold it and let it go and not succumb to rot and mold and mildew. So that's what we're working with here. And I'm gonna skip past. So Katie will have the slides, so you can look at them in more depth later. We use software to calculate our carbon emissions, so we can quantify a baseline and a carbon negative goal. And we also use other software to help understand indoor air quality and healthy materials. The icing on the cake with using environmentally friendly materials is that we also increase positive indoor air quality. So we eliminate rudless chemicals, harmful VOCs, and off-gassing. We are very interested in panelized approach. There are companies that are already doing this, that are already creating affordable housing, multi-story, multi-unit affordable housing using carbon negative technology. That's where we're going with all of this. We know that buildings account for 50% of the total global emissions. Of that 50%, roughly half of that is coming from materials. So we can't just simply look at energy efficiency. We have to also combine that with the materials themselves. And so that's what we mean when we talk about carbon negative buildings or buildings as carbon sinks. We're creating buildings that can sequester more carbon than they are emitting. I'm just gonna keep going here. We can also apply this to renovations and preservation work. This is a pilot project in Pennsylvania where they use hemp-based insulation method for a renovation project. So we're working with Sustainability Institute, talking about a pilot with them to tweak their weatherization model to a carbon negative weatherization model. This just gives you a quick visual of carbon emissions with our really high carbon polystyrenes, plastic, petroleum-based materials. And as we move towards more plant-based materials, we begin to sequester carbon. We know that typically cheaper materials are used in low-income housing. Same disparities exist that we see in most situations, is that we tend to have more toxic buildings that are creating health problems. These are known carcinogens that are coming from products like cheap vinyls that we tend to see in affordable housing. So we're really interested in working with Gianna and the Department of Housing to really talk about how we can do both. We're looking at cities that are doing that, that are integrating affordable housing with healthy materials. Also to piggyback on what Katie said with getting in front of the children, we have programming where we teach about these methods and materials. It's really important to get into the schools, to get in front of children. I teach for the American College of Building Arts as well. So some of these photos that you see are from past events and workshops that I have organized in partnership with them. And this is a Community Rebuilds, is an affordable housing program in Moab, Utah, where they are building with carbon negative materials through an educational model. They've built over 100 homes, and it was a program started by the ex-mayor of Moab, Utah. And lastly, we want to help advocate for codes, building codes, ICC adoption of certain materials. That method, hempcrete, is being adopted by the ICC. It will be in the 2024 International Building Code. We want to help work with you guys. We're working with Ariel at the county, Katie at the city. We just want to help move the needle with carbon emissions and buildings, and help check all of these boxes that everybody has been speaking about. It's not going to happen overnight, but we can certainly look at how we get there over a 5 to 10 year span. We also look at other cities who are setting policy, who are creating carbon emission caps for new buildings. So we really have some great examples of cities that are building carbon negative, affordable housing, and have carbon caps on new construction. And so just to end, this is not my quote, but it kind of wraps up what we're all about, which is creating housing that's dignified, healthy, without excessive cost burdens. And I believe that we can do it. And we'd love to help assist you guys and work with you as you continue your efforts. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, April, maybe you'll let us know when the building is finished that you just got your permit for, so that we can all come and visit.
Or while it's in construction.
Thank you.
Oh.
Appreciate it. We have 2 seconds or whatever for public comment. Anybody here have any comment?
I wasn't actually planning on speaking.
Can you just state your name?
Anthony G. Bryant,
Thank you.
2123 Cortland Avenue, Charles, South Carolina, 29403. Native Charleston, borders on the field of Charleston County for 10 years. And my concern are 2 things was to mention this: income and race. Income and race was not even discussed. I heard I was served and all kind of other, codified language. We didn't talk about income and race, and gentrification, and rate increases by Public Service Commission allowed by Dominion Energy, DHEC's approvals of permits of many developments in our community, which I live in the neck area, near Rosemont, and was born and bred in that area. So I clearly understand from UDAG funding to all the funding given the city of Charleston on census tract data. So will you be using to get these grants will be census tract data you'll be using probably my mother, who's almost 80 years old, who's in the census tract in 1960, 70, 80, 90, 2000, 2010, and that's got a green trash can on her house, no services. So we hope and pray this advisory board advise this council, especially insurance. I did a public comment, insurance commission 2013, 10 years ago, regarding redlining and insurance redlining from back in the day. In terms of my parents, are still not getting great insurance policies the very day, and flood insurance. So as you develop the city, what will then happen is you have the increase of water around their houses that was built in the 1920s. So the codes of 1920, the codes of 2024 are completely different. We hope that you really consider the income of folk who make a certain amount of money, fixed income residents, and others getting some grant money, subsidize their insurance policies, and all the other issues concerning flooding that affect Black folk by and large in my community. Thank you for your service and time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes, please, Rick.
I'd like to offer to you that the grant that Dale mentioned from NOAA for $2 million, a planning grant, 25% of the evaluation criteria is devoted to serving underserved communities.
Right.
So there has to be, that has to be substantively built in to the work that these grants, if they get funded, are gonna do.
Yeah, we go
So there is sensitivity there.
You go from
And
one party to the next party in Congress, one party will say race conscious policy, one party will say race neutral policy.
well, someday you can tell me the right term to use, but I'm telling you that there is a focus on those communities that can't afford to live, work, and play in the places that they live.
Let me ask you this question then. I mean, are you all members of the continuum of care? When you heard of the continuum of care, are you a member of the continuum of care? An economic solution grants with HUD and Department of Agriculture? You familiar with that term? Well, all of you, the MUSC, the College of Charleston, and everybody are part of that. So I hope that your professors and others jump on the fact that we gotta deal with the issue in Charleston of race. I grew up in the peninsula. Many of you don't live in the peninsula at all. You advise on people you don't live near or know. You can't advise on people that you don't live near and know without going to publicly engage with them directly. So I hope that you publicly engage directly with those folks in the east side and other people you care about and are underserved. I'm one of them. I catch the bus. I catch the 10, I catch the 11, I catch majority all the buses the Carter got. I do it myself. I go to the Family Dollar and all the other places you don't go. So make sure those folks are real to you when you talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Katie, anybody online?
I just nobody else signed up to speak. I asked if there's anyone online. I don't see any hands raised. We have 5 more seconds. Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, then I move to adjourn. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your fantastic presentation. Sorry, stop running.
That's stuff there.